Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
Oh, Mike.
Oh, okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Ahmaduhu wa asta'inuhu wa asta'dihi wa astaghfiruhu. وأؤمن به جل وعلا ولا أكفره وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. I started to make tonight's talk tactics deployed against the movement, but I changed it. I have written here a number. Remember, I was talking about we was raising money at one time for Imam Lukman in Detroit.
Yep.
And we had raised a certain amount of money for him, and we had told his wife before the government sent her back to Tanzania. See, she was married to him.
Oh,
When he got assassinated, the government sent her back to Tanzania.
okay.
Some kind of undesirable or something like that. But anyway, if you see right up the top, I didn't bring my phone, but the other evening, right there, I just got that call. You can tell by those long numbers that's. I mean, this. I'm only mentioning that, and we do it almost weekly, every other day, and what have you, is to put emphasis on someone that's conscious of us. They've been conscious of us for a long time, and we have also been conscious of them. And what I want to do tonight is I want to thank and congratulate, let's call it the invisible army of nonviolence. I'll try to explain that. From this flyer, 2014, which is 6.5 years ago, number 3 says, learn how Masjid al-Islam has exposed the whole Zionist American network in the public sphere. Never has so few done so much for so many without visible support. I don't know if you remember reading that.
Yes, I've never read that one. Yeah.
And there's several reprints of this based on what the program was. I think this was the original, and February 2nd, 2014. But when we look at what it says, it has other things which we don't have time to mention now. In spite of Steve Emerson, Sean Hannity, Daniel Pipes, NSA, FBI, CIA, Homeland Security, and a host of other clowns, Masjid al-Islam in East Oakland is the only independent masjid left, that stands for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala against American Zionism. And we have the date come on February the 2nd. Number 1 states, Imam Musa will inshallah share case study after case study on how to practice psychological guerrilla warfare. We don't want to go over that now, but we was in the middle of psychological guerrilla warfare at that time. I wouldn't say at the middle, I would say at the end. The reason I say at the end is because it seems like we're always telling them our business, but we only tell them our business after it's too late for them to do anything about it. Actually, the cows had already got away, or the horses, whatever was in the barn, they already gone. And we tell them that to sharpen their game up, to make them raise their level of oppression. Well, why would anyone want someone to raise their level of oppression? Because if they raise their level of oppression, if they don't improve, if they don't get any bigger and better, then we ourselves will level off. So we have learned from past history, and this is one of the things that's helped us, I believe, besides the help of Allah, is that we force the system to improve. We do it by many means. We make fun of them, we trick them all the time, and we are successful. This is why I'm saying this. We are successful in what we're doing. The proof of it is that we're here. The proof of it is that we're not crazy and we're not running, and that we're consistently, even at this stage, improving our accuracy on anticipating and expectations and informing the people. Because remember, all of our life, our recent life, there's a time in our struggle where we had to make a decision. If you go back to the mid-'80s, we had already went through this struggle and that struggle, and we have their pattern of behavior down. Just like they have our pattern, they should have our pattern of behavior down pat. If they don't, then that's too bad for them. But we have theirs. That's why forecasting, expectations, predicting, we have been doing that either publicly or to ourselves for a long, long time with a high level of accuracy. The closer we get to now, the higher level of accuracy we get. So we had to, what did we expect in the mid-1980s? Well, we had seen that we had not had any time without being encircled and suppressed by the system. We'd also learned from this period all the way back to South America, to Africa, to Europe, back to Oakland again. We had realized that the government was always having some interference with us. That interference in the earlier years was, you could call it, there was some eras of trauma, you know, like trauma when you involved in the system. And that trauma reflected one way in us and it reflected another in other people. Other people just got killed, committed suicide, or committed social suicide. They just retired and quit. They didn't say I quit, but they didn't, as you go watching them over the years, they're not as engaged as they were in earlier years. And after decade, they're not on the scene anymore. Like today, they're not on the scene, okay? And we're not criticizing because we know how mean and rotten the system is. So we don't complain, but here's what we're doing. We are thanking and congratulating the invisible army. That's what I'm calling now. You got to remember, okay, just think about it. Could we do all these things ourselves that happen? Well, somebody said, yeah, you're a super Negro, you can do it. I bear to differ. In the mid-'80s, this is going back now, 35 years ago. At that time, boss man didn't like if I just went and ran in the hills a couple hours ago, that's why it's a little late. Okay, I went a different way today. Yeah, I parked in another place, and I went, one of the old ways I used to go, and the way it was down, but, so at first, they're zooming around, I'm just watching the traffic, trying to see where I'm going. Why am I not going to my regular spot? The crossings, park there, and either run down in the woods, or do like I've been doing for the last several days, run up the hill, but I'll be running on concrete. So I did it for a couple of days, 3 days in fact, and I liked it. But your legs don't like it. So today, I run on that soft dirt or gravel for a reason. Because decades and decades ago, we ran in army boots, and we ran down by the lake on concrete. One of the boxers, they drug us up in the hills and said, this is where you run, on these horse trails. We ran on the horse trail, but we still wore boots. Then you get maybe around 42, 3, 4, 5 years, we start using running shoes, and it's a difference. And it saves you a lot of, okay. Back to the day. So I went another place and parked. You should have seen them scurrying around, or some guy walking across the street in front of where I just parked, on the phone, see where I'm parking, walk back. That's okay. That was a time when they didn't do that. They were more discreet. We anticipated well over 35 years ago that was going to increase. So we had so much time to institute a program where we're going to make contact. See, we never could make contact with people who were open friends of ours because we're going to put heat on them. That's what we call it in Jahiliyyah. If you hot, you know what I mean, under the microscope of the system, and you go visit your friend, well, he's going to get hot too. Yeah. Or if you're dealing and he's dealing, and you start being around him, you already hot. You're going to get him hot too. Yeah. Using that same principle. By the early 80s, and I'm talking about almost 40 years ago, we saw that we were under scrutiny. We saw that they were sliding people up next to us. We picked all of that up right away. So we instituted a program of our own. They want to make sure that we don't contact nobody, that we don't talk to nobody, or, and they're so obvious about it. Several years ago, Abdul Malik and I had just pulled up in front of the Masjid, and a lady, it was just at night, kind of this time of year, she knocked on the door and then stepped back. So he was, who is that? Like, do I have somebody that I'm contacting that they didn't know about? No, that was, you can read that on it. Technically, it was my niece. But he didn't know that it was my niece. So he was wondering how did this get by? That I got contact with somebody that they don't know about. To make a long story short, during the last couple of decades, they have really loaded up on visible, keep him under visible contact at all times, this, that, and other. And when I go running, make sure if he meets anybody running, if he talks to anybody, if anybody comes by him, we want to know who that is. Right. And they serious about it. okay? But if I anticipated them doing that, what would I do decades and decades ago? We already have our system hooked up for contact, right? We'd already have everything in order. And we could go by a log, or we could point out through our own system, well, just go to the log and pick the thing up, or just go here and just go there. And, and that's the invisible army. So we are not, nor have we done this stuff by ourselves. That means that there are people, it's kind of like leaderless resistance before we read the article. Yeah. So that's why we say right here, we'll send them hints all the time. Learn how Masjid al-Islam has exposed the whole Zionist American network in the public sphere. Never has so few done so much for so many without visible support. In other words, nobody can take out the binoculars and say those people helped them. They can't do that. But if anybody read and observe or listen, there's some type of support coming in our direction. And they don't know who it is, what it is, and how it's happening. Why? Because anticipation. It's simple. If we have a class here on anticipation, that means 30 years ago we was already anticipating.
Right,
Yeah, because we know it works. This is how it works, right? Okay. We've had a lot of experience. In this struggle, we could either, what do they say, curse the darkness or light a candle. In other words, we could look at all of what's been going on and we could be mad at the world. And we could highlight the insufficiencies of each group, people, organization, and what they're doing. We would be technically right. Or we could show people how to do this. This is exactly what we have done. Anybody that's observing us will know you don't have to be scared of boss man. Boss man might do 1, 2, 3, or 4 things, and he might get rid of you, but he can't get rid of all of us, right? So this is where these positive expectations come in. So we can curse the darkness, or we can spread the light. I mentioned a little bit about Thakalain Center. We're going to do some programs. I'll be a little more specific, maybe around Christmas Day or Christmas time. We got a couple more turkeys left. We might just haul them out or do whatever we want to do and have a program here in concert with Thakalain Center. The whole idea is unity. What I showed you that we used to have unity programs all the time. For whatever reason I was taken out there, it came to mind right away. We have to reinstitute some of those old unity type programs. It don't make no difference who else is involved, as long as we're involved. Why? Because just like our goal in all of this have always been to show other people how to do this stuff. That it's possible to do this. You don't have to sit back and, as we say, curse the darkness. You can develop a policy or a program. And that's why we say tonight, we want to thank the invisible army of As-Sabiqun, the invisible army, because in order to do what we've been doing, it has to be an army behind it. Okay, what's my job? The job I was built for. Take all the heat, go out there and just throw stuff up against the wall, urinate on the lawn, do everything. That's my job. I've been doing it. Nobody would do this. Is my responsibility. This is what I do. It's not theirs. Everybody can't do that. Everybody shouldn't do that. They may not be built to take the heat, but out of everybody that's in existence, which one of y'all could stand boss man's heat? I can do it. You got the training? Yeah, of course I got the training. I have spent more time under the microscope than anybody, and I can do it. Well, go on out there then. Remember the discussion on Bell the cat?
Right, yep.
That all animals were being oppressed by this big, I call it a cat or something, a monster, a creature. And so they said, well, what can we do? And they're thinking, I tell you what, every time he comes by, we'll put a cowbell or something on him. And he'll let us know, he's coming. So they all agreed. Then now, okay, who's going to put the bell on the cat? That's why they call it belling the cat. Who's going to put the bell around the neck of that sucker that chews things up, spits it out, got claws, fangs, everything?
Right.
Which one of y'all going to put the bell on the cat? And then there's always some, even the Quran mentioned that the human being is a little hasty and foolish, but not in this way, just dedicated to say, I'll do it. Not only do it, but we're going to record, we're going to chronicleize, right? We're going to archive all of this stuff, right? And that's what it's in. That's why all the programs here have been reasonably repetitive. They go subject 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and maybe 6, 7, and 8, that's it. And it all feeds a certain way. So that's why tonight we said we want to thank the invisible army of As-Sabiqun. We want to thank them and congratulate them. We congratulate them. They are real people. They exist. And boss man don't have no idea. He don't have no idea